David sits alone at a small cafe table with a retirement app open on his phone. The balance shows $1.2 million. Beside the coffee cup, a property tax bill shows $9,400. A Medicare premium notice is folded under the receipt. A quarterly statement shows his portfolio falling again. From the outside, David looks comfortable. Inside, the number does not feel safe. This is the net worth illusion. One large balance can create the impression of retirement security while the system beneath it is carrying pressure. Net worth shows what a person owns. It does not show how easily that wealth becomes monthly stability. It does not reveal spending pressure, tax timing, healthcare costs, debt direction, or emotional tolerance. So the real question is not whether the number looks large. It is whether the number can survive the life attached to it. Net worth begins as a clean number because it removes the noise. Assets minus liabilities. What remains looks like a simple answer. But retirement is not clean in that way. Retirement is not a single number sitting still on a screen. It is a moving system. Money enters, money leaves, prices change, markets move. Health costs appear at the wrong moment. Taxes arrive on a schedule that does not always match the rhythm of spending. That is why net worth can look strong while retirement security feels weak. The system works like a house with a water tank on the roof. The tank may be full, but the experience inside the house depends on the pipes, the leaks, pressure, and demand. A full tank does not mean every room has steady water. In retirement, net worth is the tank. Monthly stability is the plumbing. The first pressure point is spending. A seven-figure balance can feel very different depending on how much life is pulling from it each month. A household spending $40,000 a year places one kind of pressure on a portfolio. A household spending $95,000 a year places a different kind of pressure on the same portfolio. The number did not change. The load changed. This is where the net worth illusion begins. It treats the pile as if it exists by itself, separate from the lifestyle attached to it. But retirement money is never separate from lifestyle. Every recurring cost turns part of the portfolio into a future obligation. Housing, insurance, utilities, food, transportation, family support, travel, and medical bills all become claims against the same pool. None of these costs are moral failures. They are simply system loads. The question is how much pressure that lifestyle places on the assets that are supposed to support it. The second pressure point is income durability. Two people can have the same net worth and live with different levels of security because their income structure is different. One retiree may have Social Security covering most basic costs. Another may have to draw heavily from investments every month. One may have a pension or rental income. Another may depend almost entirely on selling assets at whatever price the market offers that year. In both cases, the balance sheet may show the same wealth, but the system underneath is not the same. Stable income acts like a floor. It does not make retirement risk disappear, but it changes how much weight the portfolio has to carry. Without that floor, the portfolio becomes both the engine and the safety net. That creates a different emotional experience. Every bill becomes connected to the market. Every withdrawal feels more visible. Every downturn raises the question of how much future spending has just been pulled forward. The third pressure point is asset usability. Net worth counts almost everything, but retirement security depends on what can actually be used. Home equity may be large, but it does not automatically pay a grocery bill. A retirement account may be valuable, but withdrawals can create tax consequences. A brokerage account may be flexible, but it can be exposed to market timing. Cash may feel stable, but over long periods, inflation quietly weakens what it can buy. Business equity, vehicles, or land may appear on a balance sheet, but they may not convert into monthly income easily. This creates a gap between ownership and access. A person may own a lot and still feel constrained. The wealth exists, but not all of it is available in the right form, at the right time, with the right level of certainty. That is why a large net worth can sometimes feel heavy rather than freeing. It sits inside assets that are real, but not always flexible. The fourth pressure point is debt direction. Net worth subtracts debt, but it does not always show where debt is moving. A retiree with debt that is shrinking may be under less future pressure than someone with a lower debt load that keeps expanding. Direction matters because debt is a claim on future cash flow. When debt payments rise, more of tomorrow's income has already been assigned before tomorrow arrives. A mortgage, a car loan, a credit card balance, or a home equity line can all change the way the retirement system breathes. The visible net worth may still look acceptable, but the monthly system can become tighter. The bucket may look full, while the drain below it is widening. These four layers explain why net worth often fails to reflect retirement security. It shows ownership, but not pressure. It shows the size of the tank, but not the leaks. It shows accumulated wealth, but not income durability. It shows assets, but not usability. It shows debt as a deduction, but not debt direction. Retirement security lives in the interaction between these layers. When spending pressure, income durability, asset usability, and debt direction move against each other, the same net worth can produce different lives. This is why two retirees with identical headline numbers can wake up inside different financial realities. Now, place the mechanism next to the same man in two different retirement structures. David is 67 in both scenarios. In both versions, his net worth is about $1.4 million. At first glance, the comparison seems almost identical. Same age, same headline number, same visible level of wealth. But once the structure underneath is opened, the two retirements begin to look very different. In scenario A, David's net worth is concentrated in places that look impressive, but do not move easily. About $850,000 sits in home equity. Another $400,000 is inside retirement accounts. He keeps $75,000 in cash, and the rest is tied up in vehicles and personal assets. On a simple balance sheet, David appears strong. A valuable home, retirement savings, cash reserves, and other assets create the image of a secure retiree. But the monthly system tells a colder story. David still has a mortgage payment. His property tax has risen several times. Insurance costs have moved higher. His home is valuable, but the home does not automatically send money into his checking account. His portfolio has to cover the gap between Social Security and the life he is used to living. That gap is not dramatic in 1 month. It becomes heavier when repeated across years. A vacation, a roof repair, a healthcare bill, and a weak market quarter all pull from the same place. This is where theory meets reality. In theory, David has $1.4 million. In reality, much of that number is locked inside a house he does not want to sell. His liquid portfolio is much smaller than the headline number suggests. His spending pressure is higher than the balance sheet shows. His debt is not overwhelming, but it still claims part of each month before the rest of retirement can begin. David is not poor. That is not the point. The point is that his net worth looks larger than his flexibility feels. Now look at scenario B. David still has about $1.4 million in net worth, but the shape is different. Around $450,000 sits in home equity. About $700,000 is in retirement accounts. He has $150,000 in taxable investments and about $100,000 in cash and short-term reserves. His number is not higher than scenario A. His system is simply arranged differently. His housing cost is lower. His debt is minimal. Social Security covers a meaningful part of his basic monthly needs. His portfolio still matters, but it is not forced to carry every expense alone. Some of his assets are easier to access. Some sit in different tax buckets. Some can absorb timing pressure better than others. When a bill arrives, the entire retirement does not depend on one asset being sold at one moment. The contrast is not emotional, it is mechanical. Scenario A has more wealth trapped in a single asset. Scenario B has more wealth spread across usable forms. Scenario A has a larger lifestyle load relative to flexible assets. Scenario B has a lighter fixed structure. In Scenario A, David may feel every market decline as a direct threat to his spending plan. In Scenario B, he may still notice the decline, but the system around him has more room to absorb it. Before seeing the mechanism, both versions looked equally secure. After seeing the mechanism, the same number tells two different stories. Scenario A measures ownership, but it does not fully measure pressure. Scenario B also measures ownership, but more of that ownership can support monthly choices. The difference is not the headline number. The difference is the relationship between assets, income, spending, debt, and access. This is why net worth can mislead without technically being wrong. The number's not fake. The assets are real. The house has value. The accounts have balances. The cash exists. But retirement security depends on whether those pieces can work together when life becomes uneven. A large home repair does not care about total net worth. It cares about liquidity. A long market decline does not care about a home appraisal. It affects the assets being sold. A rising insurance premium does not care about status. It adds pressure to monthly cash flow. So the conclusion does not need to be forced. Comparison already shows it. Same David, same $1.4 million. One version has a heavy number. The other has a usable system. Same net worth. Different retirement reality. This is the blind spot. Most people are trained to think retirement security comes from crossing a number. 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. The number becomes a finish line. It gives the mind something clean to chase. But retirement does not ask only how much has been accumulated. Retirement asks what that accumulation is being forced to do. A person can reach the number and still feel uneasy because the number is carrying more pressure than expected. The misconception sounds simple. The problem appears to be the size of the pile, but the real issue is often the shape of the system around the pile. A large portfolio can still feel fragile when fixed costs are rigid. A paid-off home can still create pressure when property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and healthcare rise together. A strong account balance can still feel uncertain when income depends heavily on selling investments during uneven markets. Net worth is visible. Structure is not. That is why the visible number gets most of the attention. It is easy to compare. It is easy to screenshot. It is easy to turn into a status symbol. Structure is quieter. It lives in monthly obligations, tax timing, spending habits, withdrawal needs, income floors, and the direction of debt. The reframe is not that net worth does not matter. It matters. It shows what has been accumulated. It shows ownership. It shows the result of many past decisions. But it is not the full retirement picture. Net worth answers one question. What is owned after debt is subtracted. Retirement security asks a different question. How much pressure can the system absorb before choices begin to narrow? That question changes the way the number is seen. A smaller net worth with low fixed costs, stable income, flexible assets, and shrinking debt can feel more secure than a larger net worth surrounded by high obligations. This is not because the smaller number is magically better. It is because the system around it demands less and bends more. The mental shift is from size to strain. Not just how big the number is, but how hard the number has to work. Not just what appears on the balance sheet, but what happens when bills, markets, taxes, and health costs arrive at the same time. That is the quieter truth behind retirement security. The number may look finished. The system may still be under construction. Net worth can show what has been accumulated, but it often fails to show whether that accumulation can carry the pressure of retirement. A large number can still hide weak monthly cash flow. A paid-off home can still hide rising property costs, insurance, repairs, and medical bills. A strong portfolio can still feel fragile when every withdrawal depends on market timing. And a smaller net worth can sometimes support a more stable retirement when the system around it is lighter, cleaner, and more flexible. The point is not that net worth is useless. The point is that net worth is only the visible layer. Retirement security lives underneath it, in spending pressure, income durability, asset usability, and debt direction. That is where the real picture begins to appear. No advice, just observation. This mechanism leads to a bigger issue in retirement: why some people technically have enough money, yet still feel unable to spend it. That gap between financial capacity and emotional permission is where the next layer begins.